is up, everybody? It is the one and only SGC Tronic Bush here, back with another video. Today we're going to be interviewing Manda Solyc, the former general of the Orbital Military Defense. We're going to start off with your clan history on Halo. So when did you first join the Halo clan community?
I first joined the Halo community back in 2008, September, on Halo 3.
And what was the first clan you ever joined?
Gamma. It originally stood for Galactic Marines, though later on we decided to narrow it down to just the abbreviation. And it was up for a good 3 years or so.
Wow. Did you stay in it for the entirety of the 3 years?
I was in it for about half of its lifespan, commanding one of its divisions.
And why did you join that clan of all of them?
It was actually my best friend in real life who was the leader of the clan, and when I got my Xbox 360 in 2008, he asked me if I would join because I got Halo 3 as my first game for my console. So I told him yes, and I grew with the group, eventually creating a division that bolstered about 65 people and got more than half the wins.
And what do you remember from the community back in that day?
I wasn't too involved with the rest of the Halo community. I was more involved with recreation and competitive parts of the community. So what I do remember back then, though, was there were a lot of larger groups because of the high population of people back then. So many people were excited about Halo 3 and how good Bungie was doing with the Halo series back then. So there was a lot of players to go recruiting for. So there was always something to do. It was a really fun time, a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, yeah. So what you had mentioned to me earlier before we started recording that you were or that you took part in the Mandalorians. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've had several roles in the Mandalorian community, but the most notable of them was probably in 2015. I was actually the one who created and founded the current era of the Mandalorian community. I served as Mandalore the First, um, and led the community from 2015 of to the beginning of 2016.
And what were the did you face any particular challenges with starting up that sort of legacy?
The biggest challenge I would have said would have been building. Um, I had the opportunity to start with 7 people, and I took it. And those 7 co-founders of mine were a huge help. 2 of them went on to become clan leaders of the Mandalorian community, both of which were House Vizsla and House Scarada. And our biggest issue was definitely building, because when you start a community, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have the challenges of who am I letting into my community? Are they going to represent us well? If I do let them in, are they going to be able to contribute? And basically, I was faced making those decisions constantly, day by day, because when we started making a reputation for ourselves, more and more people flocked to us and asked if they could join us and start clans within our community and so on and so forth. And in about 7 months, we went from 7 people to around 120.
Wow. And that's in what when did you start up that? In 2015 you said?
Yes, March 31st of 2015, if memory serves me correctly.
Wow.
And by October, we had about 7 or 8 clans under our command. As a community of Mandalorians, we're unified by a tenet of 6 actions. And one of those actions is when called by Mandalore, rally to his cause. And that very action was what rallied the community together. So as long as there was a Mandalore, the community stayed relatively unified,
And can you and
giving
most
us an edge
people
over clans.
right, and most people, including myself, have no knowledge of what the Mandalorians actually were, or what you were trying to like go with it as a whole, as a community as a whole. So what were some of the goals? What did you aspire it to be?
When I had originally started the Mandalorians, I was thinking about ending my Halo career as a whole, and I decided I wanted to do one last thing before I went. And I wanted to create a community that everyone would remember, whether good or bad, whether we were notorious or we were looked at as, the greatest examples of our time. And I overall just wanted to make some activity happen on Halo Reach. There's so many people that were complaining about how inactive the game was becoming, and I wanted to prove to everyone that you can make an active community. So that's why I built the Mandalorians, and the goals I had with the group as a whole um, were probably just to build up and be the best that we could be, represent ourselves as what we were. Um, we were semi military because we did adopt military values, tactics, and strategies, but at the core level, we were warriors. We weren't considered to be completely part of the military community, but we did involve ourselves completely with it.
Right. Wow. So um what do you think about all the clans on Halo 5 declaring Halo Reach as a dead game?
Um, I think anyone that is on Halo 5 that declares Reach as a dead game just hasn't taken the time to actually go and look around at the different clans that are making something of themselves on this game and continuing to find activity. I think that the people that are making excuse me, making such accusations about Halo Reach being dead need to come to Halo Reach and honestly just look around. There's a whole community flourishing on this game. Some people didn't make the move to Halo 5 because of the way that the game was built. Some people just liked things better here on Reach. I mean, as we all know, this was a game created by Bungie and taken over by Microsoft, 343 to be exact. And of course, Halo 5 was created by 343, so there's going to be lots of different likes and dislikes.
Right.
So I think it's natural that people are going to say things like that about a game that they're not too familiar with anymore.
Right, exactly. So, in your opinion, do you think that there are any major powers left on Reach or in the makings?
The most recent group I was with, the Orbital Military Defense Clan, is definitely in the makings of becoming a power on Reach. I don't think that they've hit that completely yet, but there are a lot of leaders and a lot of people that are striving to become leaders within the clans. There's competition. Where there's competition, there's opportunity for growth, especially as a whole. Um, they've been doing kind of shaky lately with their raids, but competitive wise, they've been doing a little bit better. I had the opportunity to serve in a couple competitive battles while I was in the group, but as a general, of course, my goal was mostly administrative and management. Um, Other groups, I would say, would definitely have to be your group, the SGC. I would definitely view as a power on Reach, as well as DGA. So I haven't, from when I last had contact with them, they were able to fill up a lobby or two. You know, population is a good way to measure a clan's activity. If you can see a lot of people in one group, you can get an idea of, okay, these guys must be active, which in my opinion is what determines whether or not one is a power. Because if you have a lot of members, that means you're doing something right.
Hmm.
Clans thrive on activity. If you don't have anything going on, people are going to leave. You want to be in a clan that's doing something, because that's why people join clans. They don't want to be bored. They want to
Exactly.
be at the heart of the action.
Exactly.
So, and going back to your question from earlier, that was one of my goals as the Mandalore of the first generation for my community, was making sure that we were active. We had to be active in order to get growth. And that's how we managed to become a power. And in fact, some even called us a superpower, because of course we were a community. We weren't just one clan.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's and I want to go back to the Mandalorians, because I'm very interested, and I'm sure other people are too. What happened to your generation of it?
Well, Not too many people in the community know this. It's mostly my inner circle and a few others in the Mandalorian community that are aware of this fact. But I am actually a father of a 9-month-old, and I'm actually about to be a father once again here upcoming in March. So
No way.
when I started, yeah,
No way.
yeah. So it's
Like an
yeah,
actual father.
yeah, actual father.
And, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
awesome,
So
dude.
it was around that time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Let's
it's
continue.
it's been a
Yeah.
blessing. It really has. Yeah. So anyway, later in 2015, it was around our peak in October. I started realizing, you know, that eventually I would have to take my family, my daughter, as a priority when the time came when she was born. So obviously, I wanted to make sure that I was focusing on that as priority, not Xbox, which is common sense, of course.
Right.
Um, so I started thinking about that, and eventually I decided to resign as a whole. And it is not the way of the Mandalorians, or when one Mandalore leaves, the Mandalore does not choose the next Mandalore. Um, there is another code, more likely, more of a set of guidelines really, that the Mandalorians follow, and one of those is the strongest have the right to rule. So what that means is the person who is best fit to be leader after I leave will claim that role naturally. We didn't leave it up to democracy. We didn't leave it up to any sort of vote. The Mandalorians were completely a dictatorship. When there was no Mandalore present, the Crusades could not go on. The Crusades being basically where we rally all of the clans together and we go and attack other groups, other communities, in order to test our strength. So that's when I left. It took 2 months for someone to finally claim that role, and by then, different groups started within that time period. People were fighting each other, and the community was kind of going into disarray. Um, so eventually, it was left down to about 4 clans. And in January, no, excuse me, December, a man named Teonila, a lot of people know him as a Ray Fett these days, the leader of the Fett clan, he decided to claim the title of Mandalore. And from then on, that was the beginning of the second generation of the Mandalorian community.
And so where are they now?
Right now, I would describe the Mandalorian community in its fourth generation, because between Generation 2 and this current generation, we've seen the rise and fall of many people claiming the title of Mandalore, and person earns their title as Mandalore when they contribute to the community and actually make a name for themselves, not just hold the title, because anyone can reach up and claim the title. But it takes someone truly worthy of holding that title to earn themselves their personal title. Mine, of course, was Mandalore the First. Teonila was known as Mandalore the Preserver. That's how we referred to him. Um, it's one's actions that define their Mandalore title. In Anila's case, it was because he wasn't able to further the Mandalorians, but he was able to preserve it as a culture. He was able to keep it alive until someone more fit could come along and restore them. And we didn't have Mandalore worthy of a title between those two generations. So right now we're in Generation 4, after we've had actually two great falls in the Mandalorian community. We've had two great periods of inactivity. So,
Hmm. Are any of the original seven founders still participating in fourth generation, or?
they are. Um, NGC Topaz and Draw Solik, they are both original co-founders that started Solik with me when I founded the Mandalorian community in 20. NGC Topaz or Trishine Solik, um, House Solik, along with a few other groups on Halo 5, where they're doing extremely well. They're the center of Mandalorian politics, if you will, on that game. and Solyc is co-leading as the clansman of that group. The clansman is more or less like a advisor slash second in command. So
Wow. Well, I think that's really empowering that you were able to build your own community and build a legacy for everybody else and kind of control people, I guess, in a sense, to the point of what you did. And the other thing I wanted to touch base with was what led up to the Mandalorians. Like, what did you do before? What?
um, there were two clans that led to the creation of them in the Mandalorians. The first was a group called Mercom. I'm sure that there are plenty of individuals in the community are familiar with a man named Colonel J. Jones or UNSC M. Jones. Um, he's currently back in the community leading a group on Halo 5. And I actually joined his group back in 2014. Um, and I started out as a private back when Karavu was leading their Spartan program, I think, Karavu SIB. Um, and after I worked my way up through their enlisted ranks and officer ranks, I eventually became the second in command of Mercom, becoming a lieutenant colonel and leader of their Marine branch. And about four or five of the seven founders that actually started the Mandalorian community with myself were actually in that group. And that's how I met a lot of the people that would become my followers in the first generation of Mandalore. Um, so when I left that group, I actually started another clan called Crimson Command. It was a military clan. It lasted for about 2 months. It wasn't really anything huge, but we did get to around 30 or 40 members or so, because in the 2 months we were up, we did do quite a bit. Felt like more like 6 months. When we decided that we weren't interested in doing anything like that anymore, well, when I decided I wasn't, I ended up giving that group over to one of my other leaders. And for couple weeks, I was clanless, and then I got the idea, started thinking about what it would be like to start a Mandalorian community on Halo Reach, because I was aware of the fact that there's two eras in the Mandalorian community. An era is described in our community as if a community completely dies and no one is around to participate in it anymore. That is when the era dies. So before my era, the second era, there was actually an era of Mandalorians that started on Halo 2 and lived up. Their community was around up until around mid 2013. Um, I got that information from somebody who participated in that community, a few people actually. And I actually got the opportunity to the founder of that community, who was a really great man and gave me some advice after I met him when I started the Mandalorians. So when we got the idea, when I got the idea to start the Mandalorians, I pulled those seven people from my group, and because I told them all, I said, "Do you guys want to be a part of what I'm going to do?" And after explaining to them what the Mandalorians were, they said, "Fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's blow some shit up." Because that's what the Mandalorians are good at. They're good at just going into a lobby and wrecking shit. That's what we wanted to do. We had a lot of fun with it.
Wow. Well, you certainly, I'm so thankful that that Grunt invited you to that party, and then I asked you about the interview because I had no idea about any of this, and even with Grunt's interview, and I've known Grunt for years, he told me a whole bunch of shit that I had no idea about. So this is pretty cool. uh,
There
but
is a bit of information regarding DGA that's related to the Mandalorians.
really, well, let's hear it.
Say again?
Oh, let's
Yeah.
hear it. Yeah, let's hear it.
So whenever DGA Truth was still leading leading DGA, for a period of time, DGA actually merged into the Mandalorian community and became a Mandalorian clan of its own.
Really?
It only was for about a month and a half. Yes, it was actually for about a month or a month and a half of time that it actually happened, but they were around. I want to say this was either during our first gen or during our early third gen, because so much happened between those two during those two generations. Memory's a little fuzzy, but yeah, it was mainly due to the fact that I have two Mandalorian brothers in my adopted family of the Mandalorians. One of them is Edgar Zig. He's last time I heard he was working with the UNSC Commonwealth. I don't know if he's still doing that anymore. And then there was another one. I can't remember his gamer tag, but the other guy that was my brother in the Mandalorians was actually the biological uncle of DGA Truth, real life uncle.
Huh.
So he spoke with Truth, and we basically got something going where we would let them in. It didn't end up working out, so they split off and they became DGA again.
I think that pretty much wraps everything up. Thank you so much again for coming to this interview. I really appreciate it. I'm sure everybody else here does as well. Is there anything else you want to tell people about the Mandalorians?
You know, like I said, Triadic, the Mandalorians, they're a very misunderstood community. There's flaws in every community that we have on these games, and the Mandalorians are no different. There's bad apples, and certain individuals will rise up and will do things to make a community look bad. But as a whole, we have to remember that there are strengths and weaknesses to every group, and I think that the Mandalorians are a group that's more unified than any other as far as communities are concerned.
Absolutely. Completely agree with that. Anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure to smash that like button. Let's try and get how many likes, Manda? What are we shooting for?
Uh, 100,000 would be cool, but let's be realistic.
A little bit more realistic than that.
Hmm. How's 1,000 likes sound?
1,000 likes. I don't even have 1,000 subs. Let's go for 25 likes.
25.
Yeah, guys, let's go for 25 likes on this video.
25. Okay. We'll go with
25. I know. It sounds pathetic. I don't even want to say that anymore.
that.